Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams. And today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment. In today's episode of the Power of Design podcast, I'm talking to Dan Polstra. Dan is the manager of business development at GroundBreak Carolinas, a media services firm dedicated to providing valuable, relevant, and consistent news and information for the construction community in North and South Carolina. This is my conversation with Dan. Hey Dan, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
Hey Jack, I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me today.
Sure. So tell me about your day today. What do you do?
It's been a good day, and it's getting better because you offered me a beer here at 5 o'clock.
Good.
So I got up early. I went to our men's Bible study, 6:30 at Chick-fil-A. Then I went to my office for a little bit, knocked out some emails, and then I came up 85 and I visited a few customers, and then I got to come here.
Nice.
So it's a good day so far.
Good. So you came from Greenville.
I did.
Right? Yeah. Oh, good.
I did.
So Dan, tell me about where did you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta. In 1975, my mom and dad moved to Atlanta from Chicago. They took me with them.
Wow.
And I was in 8th grade. And after high school, I went to Georgia Tech and I studied mechanical engineering. I met my wife there, my future wife, who's also an engineer.
Wow. Yeah. You know, Atlanta was the second city that I visited. First, I went to Miami.
Yep.
But when I came to United States, I went to Atlanta because my cousins live there. And I like it, but I always remember the traffic being terrible.
Yeah,
you know?
You only stayed 2 weeks.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
and it's a nice city. You know, my cousins are still there. We usually go and visit, once or twice a year.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing amazing projects down there. The Ponce City Market.
Oh, I've heard about that, but I haven't seen it.
Beautiful.
Is
adaptive reuse, these very old buildings, and they created this new kind of mixed use development, a lot of restaurants and entertainment. It was really nice.
Right.
But now that I live in Charlotte, I don't think I will live in Atlanta.
Yeah, I lived there 25 years, and I understand why you don't want to live there anymore.
Yeah.
And same reason that I moved away from there.
Yeah. So you made your wife there. I guess, you went to college. Tell me about, once you graduated, how was that transition to the professional world?
Yeah. Well, I've got a little bit of an unusual story in today's world, Jack, in that I worked for one company, one job for my entire career.
Wow.
And that was with Trane Company as a sales engineer for their commercial and industrial market. And the job was 100% commission. So it was kind of like owning my own company, but within an umbrella of a Fortune 500 company. So that was pretty neat. But I started with Trane in Atlanta in 1983, and I worked there until 2001. So it was a great start to my career for those 17, 18 years. I got a lot of really good friends there. Both sets of our parents were there. Had some established customers in my career there. But as you mentioned, in 2001, Atlanta was starting to get crazy with traffic. And we had 3 kids at the time, and my wife and I wanted to get to a smaller, less crowded area. But we wanted to stay in the Southeast and reasonably close to our parents. So Greenville came up as a possibility. And we headed up here, and I worked here in the Greenville Trane office for 17 more years. And
Oh,
then I
wow.
retired in 2018
Nice.
from Trane.
So you graduated from engineering.
Mhm.
When you started out with Trane, were you doing some engineering, or when did you go straight to sales?
I did straight to sales as a sales engineer. Trane hires people with engineering degrees to be technical sales
Yeah.
people.
And how did you feel about going into the sales world? Because I will think that engineering school is not gonna prepare you to sell. They might prepare you to think and solve
Yes.
problems, but
Yes.
not to sell and be with people and help them understand the value when you bring. How was that transition for you?
Right. And I always liked math and science, but part of my personality is that I like to be around people. So I knew I didn't want to hide in an office and crank on drawings
Yeah.
all day long. I knew I wanted to use my background, but to get out and talk to people and be with people and make friends with people. So that's kind of how the transition worked. And when we went to the training class in La Crosse, Wisconsin for Trane, they had a 6-month program that you went through to learn the fundamentals of
Oh, good.
HVAC, but they also had a really good sales training program as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have an interesting story back in the day when you started?
Back when I started with Trane,
Yeah.
well, let's see, me and okay, 1983. This was before internet or anything, and I knew I was going to have to go to La Crosse, Wisconsin, but I didn't know where I was going to live or who I was going to room with or anything. So I asked a few people in the local Atlanta office that I met, "Hey, where do you stay in La Crosse?" And a couple of them said, "We lived in the Shelby liquor store, on the top floor of the Shelby
Yeah.
liquor store, 2-story building." I said, "Okay, that sounds convenient." So I got the list of people that were coming to the training class with me. And one of them was from Texas, and I lived in Houston for a little bit, so I thought, well, that guy might be all right. And another gentleman was from California. So I called both those guys and said, "Hey, I got a place that I think we can rent. Are you interested in being a flatmate with me?" But the hitch was I got the best room,
Yeah.
and it was pink. so I had a pink room on the second floor of Shelby Liquor Store.
That's nice. I bet it was very popular.
Yes, we had some parties there. It's true.
So what do you think was one of the best things you learned throughout your first years or of selling about understanding what people really want? How do you become a trusted advisor and a trusted partner so they keep calling you? Because what when we sell a product, and if it's a good product, you talk about the benefits and the
Mhm.
value that you bring, but that personal connection to keep the flow going. What were like kind of the biggest things you learned throughout your career?
I would say one of the biggest things I learned in my career would be that you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So I was used to talking a lot because that's just part of who I am, but I had to learn to listen to people and ask questions. So find out what their pain points were, what their needs were, what they liked, what they didn't like about people who called on them. I would ask them that up front.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like to see in a salesman? How often you want me to come by?
Yeah.
How often you want me to call you? Things like that.
What do you think was the deciding factor when you started looking at, okay, to me, I think I'm gonna retire,
Mhm.
and looking at down, that goal that a lot of people have?
Right.
When did you start thinking about that?
Uh, I think after 34, 35 years, I felt like I've got the kids through college now. My wife was still teaching at the time. My financial planner said, "Hey, if you would like to retire, you can." So I thought, hey, that sounds pretty good. I want to try that for a little bit.
Yeah. And how did that happen? Those first days. Tell me about that.
Well, I remember the first day after I retired, I went to Lowe's and just walked around. Then I went to Cabela's, walked around. So it was fun. I called my kids and just told them, hey, I'm just goofing off.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, after a few days, it was really hard for me to realize that my phone wasn't ringing anymore and people didn't need me like they used to.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a shock. And that's why I ended up at GroundBreak, actually.
Wow. Yeah. Tell me about that transition. How did you connect with them? And, tell me a little bit about what GroundBreak Carolinas is.
Right. Well, in 2018, later that year after I retired, Bill Caldwell contacted me.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill is one of the principals, GroundBreak Carolinas, and he was the president and CEO of one of the top mechanical contractor firms, Waldrop Mechanical in Spartanburg, that I called on. So I got to know him pretty well there. He worked at Floor for 25 years before that. So he's been around. And he pitched the concept of GroundBreak to me one afternoon and said, hey, we're here to fill a void by providing a locally owned platform in the AEC industry in the Carolinas. And he asked me if I wanted to be part of that. And I told him I did. And I also, when I was at Trane, I knew Brian Gallagher. I think you have met. Brian was with a large design build general contractor in Greenville. And we had worked together on a committee at AEC Carolinas. Mm-hmm. So Brian's one of these guys who's been in the construction industry for 30 years. He's kind of a marketing guru. He's written several books, and he's the founder of GroundBreak. And he and his wife Lauren, who works in communications, they're also principals in GroundBreak. So
okay,
I knew Bill and Brian and thought it would be a good fit.
Good.
Keep connected to the industry and be able to go call on customers.
Great.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
So what does GroundBreak offer to the community and the marketplace in the construction industry?
Right. Well, what GroundBreak does is we connect companies in the AEC industry in the Carolinas that either want to gain exposure where they may not have it, or they want to demonstrate that they're the expert in a particular field. So they do this by providing content that we publish in an e-newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks. We've got about 7,000 subscribers. You're one of them. And we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary, just like OSA Studios is.
Mm-hmm.
And we use the content marketing and thought leadership models of marketing. And I know you know what that is because what we're doing right now is content marketing. But I'd like to define that for our listeners who may not understand or have heard that term. So according to the Content Marketing Institute, content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. So that content can be blogs, it can be videos, it can be articles, it can be podcasts, and can be social media posts. And a good example for the everyday consumer out there of content marketing is Apple's campaign they did and still doing called Shot on an iPhone. It's user-driven campaign. You've seen it on billboards, on ads, on videos, commercials. And Apple's customers would take pictures, videos, and give them to Apple. I mean, how awesome is that? They didn't even have to pay. Now, they had a few celebrities that helped them, But the message that they got out with that content marketing campaign was that you too can create professional looking photos and videos with your phone if it's an iPhone.
Yes.
So that was neat. And an example for our AEC industry would be where we published an article that was an interview with Chris Haynes from Davis and Floyd Engineers. And he's a professional landscape architect heading up Davis and Floyd's newest division called Planscape, Studio Planscape. And Planscape offers planning services with site selection and landscape architecture. So readers learn about the new division and the person leading it they learn about all that from GroundBreak, who is a third-party reference. So an owner who's reading that article might have a new project coming up in his community, and he'll remember seeing the Davis and Floyd article and the name and hopefully give him a call.
Yeah. So you guys are creating content and using content from your members.
Correct.
And then distributing that to, all the subscribers. So
right.
People can use it, one, to learn, just knowledge, understanding new trends in the industry.
Correct.
Educating themselves, but at the same time, they also have the opportunity to gain exposure.
Right.
Have clients, maybe, generate partnership with other trade partners.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I think the construction industry really needs to leverage not only communications, but technology, communication, digital marketing. I think by default, construction, it's so raw and basic, still we're doing things with our hands, that sometimes that level of communication or sophistication, it's overlooked by business owners, because sometimes they're so used to referrals, word of mouth, reputation, which is good and still works.
Right.
But sometimes they miss the opportunity to leverage these new tools that are out there in the marketplace that many other industries are using every day.
You're right. And that's a great point. My daughter was a civil engineer graduate from Virginia Tech, and she worked for a large civil engineering firm in Austin. And she left that company because she became so frustrated that they wouldn't change. They wouldn't embrace technology. They wouldn't do the next right thing, new thing, because they'd always done it that way.
Yeah.
So we're helping to push the construction industry to embrace technology better.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, who are the, members, subscribers, participants, what kind of contractors, designers, who's generally the community that is part of GroundBreak Carolinas.
Right. Well, our subscribers are anybody in the AEC industry. So it's architects like you, it's design engineers, it is law firms that have a construction division, it's accounting firms like DHG, which is now 4 of us. It's general contractors, it's the trade suppliers to them, and it's organizations like ABC and AGC and Women Talk Construction. You've had Christy Powell on here.
Yeah.
And Christy actually connected me with you. So
that's right.
Yep. So those are the general people that read our articles, and the partners that we have currently are Harper General Contractors. They're large GC out of the upstate of South Carolina. We got Davis and Floyd Engineers. They're a civil engineer out of Greenwood. Carolina Power is an electrical contractor, and Harris Integrated Solutions is a BA, building automation company. And then we try to team up too, Jack, with universities and organizations, nonprofits like ABC, the Carolinas. Amy Sullivan, who you've had on your podcast. Carolinas AGC, I mentioned Women Talk Construction. Also Clemson University, Chicks Dig It out of Raleigh, NAWIC. So those are the kind of people that we try to connect with.
What have you guys heard is the most common feedback you get from your subscribers? What do they like or they don't like?
Yeah. The thing that seems to get the most views from our newsletter is when we interview an executive of a company, because then people learn what the company vision is, what they're trying to do within the company, but they also learn who's behind all that. Tell me, what's the personality of this person? Am I going to be able to work with that man or woman? Do I like him or her? How are they involved in the community? That's a key thing. People want to know, okay, you're doing great in your company. What are you doing locally to help the community?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I love about technology is that it really helps you at least connect with people at a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
Because any company, when you hear the name of a company, is kind of like an abstract name for a group of people, but you don't connect to it.
Right.
Now, when you hear a person talking about personal experiences, now you connect.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're like, okay, this is a person just like myself. They're going through these things just like I've done. So you really connect at a very different level.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that you guys are bringing to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's either too corporate or too relaxed. It could be more like a medium type of relationship, where you like just having a conversation with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you see anything that is audio related, podcasting or Alexa or Google Voice.
Right.
It's really now taking a lot of attention, because there is nothing more human than listening to another human voice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can read the article and they're saying it, but when you listen to the voice,
right,
your brain is absorbing that information in a different
mm-hmm.
level.
Right. And look how that's worked for you. I mean, you can go meet somebody and they feel like they already know you because they've heard you for a couple of years on the podcast. So we embrace technology and we want to educate our industry about technology. That's awesome. There's so many new things coming out with technology. But as you mentioned, don't forget the face-to-face meetings. I mean, it's
Yes.
so refreshing now to be able to get out and shake a hand and meet with somebody, hopefully now that we're on the tail end of COVID. And I like what sometimes technology just doesn't work. Before I came here, I used OneNote and I was syncing my OneNote on my computer to my iPad. And I was going to use my iPad today, but something happened at Starbucks. It wouldn't sync.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what Tommy Jordan said. He's a VP at Davis & Floyd. He said, technology is great until you lose power or somebody cuts a fiber line.
Yeah.
I left a voicemail for Bill Caldwell the other morning, and whatever translation his phone was using translated my name, Dan Polstra, as Dan Polster. So he thought that was hilarious. He said I was polling him to see who he was going to vote for in the election.
What do you think is the next phase for GroundBreak in Carolinas? It's been 5 years, which
mm-hmm.
I think in the business world is probably not much. It's kind of the infancy of what this is. What are the plans for this platform, and what do you guys want to try to achieve long term?
Right. It's a good question. I mean, ideally, I think we would like to expand beyond the Carolinas into some other close by states in the Southeast, maybe hit Georgia, Florida, Alabama. One day, maybe be across the whole U.S., and then who knows from there. But I would like to get into podcasting and also video casting.
Mm-hmm.
You told me that you know the drill there now. You've gone through the hoops, and can help us get set up if we elect to go that way.
Yeah. What do you think as somebody listening to this episode that they never heard about it and they
mm-hmm.
might, really take advantage of, being a member and listening and reading to the articles. What
mm-hmm.
what do you think is the benefit they're going to get out of this?
The benefit they're getting out of this?
Yes.
By reading our
Yes.
newsletter, going to our website.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that they're learning who they need to go to in our industry if they need something done. Okay. If they've seen a bunch of articles written by DHG, now Forvis, that talks about how to deal with the PPP program.
Yeah.
How to deal with HR during COVID times. What does the new tax law mean? People are reading that, and if they need an accountant, they're going to remember, boy, these guys are all over. They're writing articles once a month. They probably know what they're doing, so I'll talk to them.
Yeah. Going to the place where you can find the information you need at that moment in time it's critical, and getting information that is general about
Right.
the business and the industry. That sometimes we focus too much on what we do that we don't really talk too much about how we do it.
Right.
And I think that's a great value that GroundBreak Carolinas is providing, just that access to that information.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like that.
Yeah. Are there any focus areas or programs, for example, people who are starting a business in one of the industries, or they kind of want to get started to learn about how to do things, or maybe find a job within the industry, kind of like a beginner entry area?
Well, as you know, the biggest problem right now in our industry is workforce shortage. I think you're looking for somebody now. So what we try to do is help get the word out that construction is a great opportunity for people, and that 4-year colleges are expensive and they may not be right for everybody. That wasn't the case what we were told 10 years ago. But now the 2-year trade schools and with the incentives that North Carolina and South Carolina are providing for tuition, that's worth looking into for people who may want a different route.
Yeah. If somebody's interested in learning more about GroundBreak Carolinas, where can they find you guys?
Well, they can find us on the website. They can subscribe to our newsletter. It comes out every 2 weeks. They can call me. They can email me, 864-380-8758.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you coming down here all the way from Greenville.
Yes.
I think what you guys are doing, it's a great contribution to the industry, and I look forward to continue the conversation going.
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me, Jack. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content, and find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.